All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our third annual career fair. I'm Jonathan Kios, and I'm super excited because we have a friend. I'm going to call him a friend who also happens to be a dean of an apprenticeship program, Mr. Chris Allen. Um, and so I'm super excited about this because many of you are interested in like the hands-on training, and he is the guru of gurus. To our audience, we do ask that you save questions for our speakers at the end of the presentation. And just thank you, Chris, for being here. Our students are super eager to hear from you. And so I just want to kind of just turn things over to you right away and give you as much time as possible.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Q, and to the team. Thank you for inviting me back. Had a great time last year, kind of sharing an overall view of apprenticeship. And I think the next 15, 20 minutes, I'm probably going to do the same, kind of give a 60,000 foot view of the apprenticeship pathway, really speak to how maybe your local community colleges are a part of that partnership that can help kind of guide you a little bit. And really just speak about choices as you kind of get ready to move forward and from your high school career. And it's kind of an exciting time, but it's also an important time that you know all of your options. There's a lot of pathways that you can choose from, especially we're real fortunate here in California to where there's an incredible amount of investment in the apprenticeship pathway. I work for a college. It might sound like I'm trying to tell you not to go to college. That's not the case, right? One size doesn't fit all. So for me, it's just helping you become aware of the choices that you have. So I'm gonna just start there. A little bit about me. It's amazing to think I've been in education for over 20 years. I had the joy and pleasure of working closely with Mr. Q, impacting students' lives for 7, 8, 9 years. I don't know how many years it was, but it was one of the best years of my career, really being on the ground, working closely with students. So the team here and the students, you're fortunate to have everyone here in the Zoom room because they do care for you and they care about your futures. And they're here as educators to provide all options for you. I got into education as a counselor, so you'll probably hear me sound like a lot like a counselor. I spent over 10 years in K-12. And I consider myself still a counselor. I will always be a counselor at heart. So, and then 10 years I worked in a Department of Labor program, kind of a pre-apprenticeship introduction to different trades and vocational pathways to be aware of, right? To learn. And I think as you start to think about your future, if you're interested in what we call the apprenticeship pathway for traditional, which is more the building trades, construction kind of trades that you're probably familiar with. But now here in California, there's something called non-traditional youth apprenticeships that really focus in non-traditional pathways in healthcare, advanced manufacturing, technology, cybersecurity. And I can just tell you there's hundreds of programs being built this past year alone. So a lot to choose from. We'll get into where you can start to find out how to be introduced to those programs. I'm going to share a screen here and just kind of put a quick little PowerPoint for everybody. I'm not alone. There's a team of two. I'm at Foothill College, a small college in Los Altos Hills here in the Bay Area. We serve over 10,000 community college students, and very unique because Foothill College also has a pretty dynamic apprenticeship program. And my colleague Fong Tran, apprenticeship program coordinator. When you only have two people, you need to shout out each other. So shouting out my colleague, she's not here today, but she was excited to hear that we'll talk about apprenticeship with everybody. Let's just kind of get straight to like the definition of what an apprenticeship is, right? And just to read it straight from the book here, a system of training that trains a worker to become skilled in a particular trade. Now, again, trade is usually associated with the construction trades, your plumber, electrician, sheet metal, carpenters, painters, and etc. Trade also can be non-traditional as well, cybersecurity or healthcare, just learning on the job in a work-based learning setting to where, for me, I enjoy learning with my hands. I like to be in the field. That's just the way that I've learned throughout my life. So everybody learns differently. And so really the apprenticeship model is a full-time employment. And you'll be doing most of your learning while you're doing the job. And then you will have what we call supplemental or technical instruction. Some classes in your program dependent on the program standard. So each apprenticeship program is a little bit different. There's not one that is the same as the other. So when you kind of explore this, you'll start to look for some of the important commonalities that fit for you, and what your future goals and your vision are for. Most of the apprenticeship programs here in California are in the building trades. They have been doing this model for over 100 years. They know it well. And typically those programs are about 5 years long. It's a commitment of 5 years, where every 6 months, if you get into the program, there's I won't get to the next slide, but you're going to have salary wages throughout your apprenticeship. But it is a commitment. I can't kind of emphasize the word commitment any more than that. It's not a model where you try it out for a year. There's an investment, because the training is free. It's free training. There's no cost to the apprentice. So the apprenticeship program definitely looks for committed apprentices that will complete the program, right? So before we start with that, typically you'll have a 5-year. There are some 3-year, 2-year programs in the building trades, but typically your building trades is a 5-year program. At Foothill College, we established 2 registered apprenticeship programs with the state of California, the Division of Apprenticeship Standards. We have a dental assistant apprenticeship now. There's a traditional pathway and there's an apprenticeship pathway, and we'll get to that a little bit later. And we also have an early childhood education apprenticeship, really having students work more in the field, working full time, because they need to survive here in the Bay Area, right? Trying to help students be more employable and also having them work to survive. And then more importantly, having them less time in the classroom because of the need to have to work, and also the preference of learning on the job. California is the powerhouse out of the whole entire country. These numbers typically go up and down. There's a goal right now from Governor Newsom by 2028 to have over 500,000 apprentices in the state. The state has invested an incredible amount of money to the apprenticeship pathway, having employers work in a mentoring capacity, employ apprentices, and start that pathway for living wages and employment. And these numbers will change by, I think, 1,300 training programs statewide. There's a push to get to 2,000 by 2025. That's a lot of training programs to be able to choose from. And a lot of those decisions, if I'm a student watching this presentation, it's going to be based on regional decisions, probably, you know, where I live and where I work. And if that's important to you, you'll make those decisions based on what's available in your region. These are some of the programs that are in the building trades. You know, we are partnered with the electricians, the plumbers, the steam fitters, HVAC. Sound and Comm is a new trade. That's a 3-year program that works more in a high-tech audio-visual pathway for electricians. We also partnered with the AATA, American Aerospace Technical Academy. This trade is called non-destructive testing. I can probably spend the next half an hour trying to explain to you what that is. But if you do have any interest, you can Google the American Aerospace Technical Academy. Very popular trade in Southern California and Central Valley. So if you're in that region, it's a pretty dynamic program and a real niche that is really looking to build a pipeline of workers because everybody's starting to age out. So non-destructive testing really is the scientist who decides if bridges still work, planes can still fly, and roller coasters can still be in the amusement park. Kind of just make sure the equipment is safe through a whole bunch of testing, etc. And then I talked about dental assistant and our early childhood education at Foothill College. At your local community college, if they are in partnership with apprenticeship programs, they might have what they call associate degree pathways. We offer 8 at Foothill College. So if you're looking at an apprenticeship program, most likely a community college is the local education agency. And so every program for us is a certificate of achievement program, but we also wanted to build an opportunity to complete your associate's degree in the trade as well. Very unique, probably the most offered in the state of California. One or two other colleges offer just as much. But for us to have stackable credentials and a pathway for students was important. So if you complete your certificate and your apprenticeship program, and if you wanted to continue on to get your associate's degree, we provide that opportunity at Foothill College. Other colleges could have similar pathways. So it's important to kind of explore and research maybe what that local education agency offers. When I talked about local education agency, the Division of Apprenticeship Standards, the state agency that oversees all of registered apprenticeship programs in California, requires apprenticeship programs to partner with either K-12 school districts or community colleges. We approve all the curriculum. So we work closely with the apprenticeship programs that curriculum is up to date. Everything is current. Student learning outcomes are aligned with the program outcomes, and we work very closely with our apprenticeship program sponsors. We embed academic and student services, and we also are the fiscal agent for apprenticeship programs. There's a lot of funding that goes along with that. No need to kind of share that here, but we are what they call the fiscal agent for 8 apprenticeship program sponsors. Just some funding numbers so you know kind of what goes into it. Apprenticeship programs get reimbursed based on positive attendance hours for apprentices to be in class receiving instruction. The state of California refunds them $8.82 an hour. And so some of the allocations that we do at Foothill College, we are the 3rd largest community college in the state in respect to RSI dollars and allocating funding for our partners. We have about 150 part-time apprenticeship faculty that we work closely. That number is probably 175 now, but a lot of faculty that have come from the trade that do a lot of the teaching in the programs. A fun little slide here. I don't want to jump there here, but kind of fun to think about it. If you're not from the Bay Area, which I don't think any of you are, so pretty easy, but you know, when we drive around here, we got some pretty cool stuff to see. You see here is the new Apple building right down the street from where I live in Cupertino. Foothill College apprentices and the training programs built these buildings. So a lot of our apprentices take a lot of pride to know when they're driving down the street, they can look over and say, I built the Chase Center where the Warriors play, or I built the Niners Stadium where the Niners play, right? So a lot of pride goes into when you're in a trade or a specific trade to be connected to the work. So I think it's important it's not just a job, it's also an art. A lot of people consider trades to be an art. And if you do learn about welding, welding is an art, right? And a lot of the trades do have welding involved in it. Eligibility, let's just kind of talk about how to get in, right? So you have to be at least 17 years of age to apply, 18 to start. You do need your high school diploma or a GED or HSC. Typically, the driver's license is required because when you start an apprenticeship program, you're also working with multiple contractors and companies that are going to dispatch you to different work sites all around the region, depending on where the apprenticeship program is, right? So, you know, you have a training program that provides you with the education and the training, and then you have a union that's going to dispatch you to on-the-job work opportunities, right? And again, paid employment, very important to keep saying that. The big part about any apprenticeship program, specifically in the building trades, not necessarily in the non-traditional side of the house, there's an assessment that goes into it. I don't do well on assessments. I over my years, sometimes you just get a little nervous, or I'm just not a good test taker, right? And I had to work extra hard throughout my career, my college career, to really prepare myself for tests. And this assessment for all apprenticeship programs is important because you get a score that is ranked against other apprentices who are also applicants who are also trying to apply for the apprenticeship program. It's not your traditional, I register for a college class and then I can start. You have to be selected to start. And so the assessment is a good 85% of your score. That assessment typically is math heavy, algebra, intro to algebra 2, not a lot of it, definitely geometry and trigonometry. And so a lot of, math is not everybody's favorite subject, not mine. Sorry for all the math teachers out there, but it's difficult. It was always challenging for me. So I had to spend some extra time to really prepare myself for math. So I always tell anybody interested in applying for an apprenticeship to either enroll in a local community college math class just to kind of get the language if you haven't been doing math for quite some time. Or a lot of the training centers have resources that you can study from and prepare for the assessment exam, because you do have the opportunity to be prepared and not just go and do an assessment and just taking it. A lot of effort in this part of the process because you can only take the assessment exam once every 6 months. You can keep taking it to improve your score. But then you would have to wait 6 months to take it again. Some programs are a little bit different. They might let you take it a little bit sooner than that. It all depends on what the program standards say. So each program is unique to its own set of standards. So they all have their different requirements. You just don't have one that fits all. So when you do research, learn about what the requirements are for each program. And like we talked about, kind of living wages here, you will start out above minimum wage in which to trade. Typically, it's anywhere between $20 to $35 starting. And then the commitment from an apprentice and an apprenticeship are the employers. You can't have an apprenticeship without having committed employers. So the employers commit to every 6 months, they provide at least a 5% increase in wages. And so this pathway, it's not just I start work and I make the same thing. By the end of the 5 years, you start at 20, and then we see our apprentices making anywhere between $55 to $85 an hour in their trade. Typically, your electricians are on the higher end, but everything falls in between about 65 to 85. And that's without benefits. That's including pension, healthcare, and et cetera. So that's just your hourly rate. So a lot of people decide about apprenticeship because of that paid employment opportunity to begin working now once you're selected to be in the program, and then that commitment from the employers to continue to receive raises during your apprenticeship. A big part of the apprenticeship is the mentoring. And the mentoring is a big part of how you learn. This is just a quick little minimum wages calendar based on what we expect employers and programs to pay starting out for apprenticeship trainees. You'll see here in the Bay Area, starting out at $24 an hour, $23 an hour. This is a state agency that has these as starting wages. And then when you do work with a community college that's in partnership with an apprenticeship program, you are eligible for financial aid services as well. You will be part-time students as a community college student, because once you're in the apprenticeship program, you're also registered as a community college student, which allows you to be eligible for some financial aid services. And any veterans also, we have a great Veterans Resource Center that are eligible for additional grants, et cetera. Checking my time here, about 15 minutes. I'm taking another 5 minutes just to talk about non-traditional apprenticeship pathways, and they're kind of exciting. And so just here, dental assistant apprenticeship, we just kind of started to work closely with our program director. A lot of community colleges are starting to explore this, specifically in the Central Valley and in Southern California as well, to really look at pathways for students to choose from, right? So you have your traditional educational pathway to the left, where you stay in class for 9 to 10 months, you take a 1-month internship, then you can take your licensed RDA exam. And this is really speaking specifically to dental assistant, but trying to give you an overall view of what you can expect from other programs. and it's great for students who don't have to work while in school. You're going to school 4 days a week. You're typically in classes 6 to 8 hours a day. Then you have your 1 month of internship. And some students, a lot of students prefer to learn that way. And that's okay. And that's why you want to have pathways to choose from, because all students learn differently. And the apprenticeship pathway, really is an innovative pathway to help students complete their program. It's great for students who must work while going to school. And then it really helps the community as well. What we didn't know when we started the dental assistant apprenticeship, this is just a healthcare pathway, is that there was a dire need for dental assistants in the state of California. There was a gap in the workforce. And so community partners are receiving ready work employees, and the employees are ready to work. And so that relationship between employers and apprentices really is kind of where that partnership comes in, by being in service for the community. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing here. So I specifically talk really about our dental assistant, but that really speaks to non-traditional. And there's a new agency in California named IACA, IACA, the Interagency of Apprenticeship, that I got it wrong because I missed a C. But if you Google IACA or Division of Apprenticeship Standards, you start to see some new pathways being built. And when I think about new pathways, I think about a lot of technology opportunities. There's a great intermediary called the Launch Network, Launch as an LAUNCH. That's in the Riverside Community Colleges, pretty big community college system down there. They do a great job working closely with employers and helping students get into the apprenticeship. They have a lot of apprenticeship programs to choose from, and all different industries, not just construction, kind of what I talked a lot about today. And so it's exciting. Employers are coming to the table and partnering with local community colleges and really helping them build out curriculum specific to the occupation that they need. One industry that we're currently working with is a semiconductor industry. We are excited to be in partnership with the SEMI Foundation, and really looking how to build on-ramps to an industry that usually had barriers because it required a degree to start the job. And I think a lot of employers are starting to see the need not to require a degree, to where they can do the training and really introduce somebody to the occupation. And then in collaboration with the local community college, have some supplemental or technical instruction that supports their learning while they're on the job being paid. And that's really the future of where California is headed. We're excited to see that. We see an incredible amount of investment the next 3 to 5 years in the apprenticeship pathway, specifically for non-traditional apprenticeships. And so Google your best friend, know what's around you as you think about, your next step. You want to start to build your menu of life, right? You want to, what are some of the big ticket items that you can select from and know what your options are. So when you do take that next step, it's something that you're prepared for and you've researched. And you understand that there's opportunities out there. I was fortunate that higher education was my opportunity at the time, but apprenticeship wasn't very well known when I was it was before the internet. But so when I was going to school, there wasn't a lot of options. It was either higher education or military, and that's all there was. Now I'm happy to see so many opportunities and pathways for students to choose from, especially here in California. So if I can be of assistance, Mr. Q and his team have my information. Look locally at your local community college and just start to explore if there are apprenticeship programs around you. And then reach out to the training centers or to the program and learn about the application process, if there's an assessment or not, and just be prepared if you're going to take that next step, because there is a commitment there, and that's expected. So I'm glad to be here and glad to share what the apprenticeship model is. And if I can be of support, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. This is huge for our students. I was talking to a high schooler recently. Well, actually, that was last school year already. And who was like, nope, don't want to go to college. And we started talking about his gifts, and come to find out, this student could like take engines apart like blindfolded. Um, and so I really was excited when you were sharing about apprenticeship programs because many of our students are very hands-on and and it used to be like, and I know we talked about this when I worked at Job Corps. It used to be like you go to college and then but that's when apprenticeship wasn't really um you know there wasn't a spotlight on it, and now it's like, hey, there's different learners. There's the pull an engine apart learner. So do you guys? So I guess my question. I have two questions. So a lot of times we hear that this is very overwhelming. Like, where do I go? What do I do? What would you, for that high schooler who they know that like their gifting is more hands-on? What would you say is like the first step that they should take? Because we hear that word overwhelming a lot.
Um, so I'll go back to my counseling days, and I would reach out to a counselor or an educator and start the conversation to say it out loud. I think sometimes you can have the conversation here, but it doesn't really go anywhere. So I would say talk with an educator, a teacher, a counselor, or make an appointment with a counselor at your local community college to really kind of say, hey, so I heard about this apprenticeship pathway. I don't know what I want to do with it, but it sounds pretty cool. And then that person will be, oh, well, I know this or I know that. So you never know when you start the conversation where the conversation can lead to. So I think that's the good first step. Absolutely. And then to your point before about higher education, apprenticeship, unfortunately, over the years, has always been kind of affiliated with just construction. And I think it was either you get to college or you got a trade. Why we're trying to do both. You don't have to choose anymore. And I think that's where we're trying to head, and trying to embed both systems on one another. So you don't have to take an on ramp and then get off and start all over again. You can just continue on seamlessly. And unfortunately, here in the States, we don't do a very good job. Other countries, such as Switzerland, Germany, in the UK, do an incredible job of embedding both systems in one another. So I think we have some room to improve here in the States, and I think we're starting that conversation with the associate degree and baccalaureate degree pathways that can possibly come out of this work.
So and my second question is, and I'm thinking of this student particularly, and actually a few other students I've talked about, automotive. Is that something that's being offered in the California community colleges? Is the auto field?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. There's a big investment in CTE programming. Just our sister college, De Anza College here in Cupertino, has a automotive program that recently got an award in a baccalaureate degree pathway. So now you can get your bachelor's degree in automotive, right? Where
Okay.
back in, years ago, you would just go to automotive and get a job, right? So you can now start to do both. So that's a good example of where we're headed as a state, of trying to embed kind of both higher education and a trade together.
Okay, great. I have a ton of questions, but I want to leave some time for panelists or students. Any students have any questions? Feel free. Um,
I
there's
just have the comment that I love hearing that the changes and the way that employers are also wanting, what they're changing their list of qualifications kind of based on this too. And I've noticed that had a conversation with my brother-in-law who's a pilot, that he's a commercial pilot, and it used to be a requirement that they had a bachelor's degree, just like what you were saying. Like but the funny thing is you could have a bachelor's degree in something completely different and it actually wasn't training for that, but that was a requirement, but it's not anymore for most commercial airlines. Now they're changing that. And I know Reedley College in our area has a flight science associate's degree type program, but you can get these licenses and certifications through that program. And then, even I know certain airlines have their own training programs, and it's like, it makes so much more sense for them to receive this instruction that's specific to their, whatever those specific duties are for that job. It just seems like you're going to get such a better training in those areas by doing it that way versus expecting students to get a bachelor's in another area that doesn't involve, whatever the specialty is. So I love that we're offering more of that where it's more specific to what the job actually entails.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
That was a comment more than a question.
Yeah, no,
I'm glad that we're going
agree.
that way.
You're going to see much more alignment the next couple of years, to your point, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot more opportunity because employers are leading the conversation now, and higher education isn't leading the conversation.
That's
Now
awesome.
they're both at the table saying, okay, how do we help each other?
Yeah, work together to make that happen. That's awesome. That's good news.
Great news. Absolutely great news. And Reedley College, great school with a lot of opportunities. And again, it might not be an apprenticeship. It could be a local community college with a certificate program that works closely with a local employer. That can really be the catalyst to get you into a field or an occupation if you're interested. And that's another pathway. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 5-year commitment. It could be a local community college certificate program.
Any other questions? Let me check the Q&A, see if we have any other questions. Okay, well, thank you so, well, I just, panelists, students, any questions? If not, Blake, you have anything?
Yeah, I'll have just one quick one. So as a student, say maybe because some of our students watching this might be at 8th grade, 9th grade, like earlier on in their high school career, what can they kind of do now to kind of start getting maybe their feet wet or exploring things before exploring an apprenticeship?
Yeah, that's a great question, Blake. And really, it's identifying the occupation or the industry, and then doing some research if there's what they call a pre-apprenticeship involved in it. And I think you'll hear the term pre-apprenticeship amongst youth. That really introduces them to the field in selective ways. So some are just you're working in a shop and your pre-apprenticeship is that way. Other pathways is you're becoming aware of the industry and learning the terminology and starting to kind of just become familiar with some of the expectations in regard to, does it need a degree or does it need a certificate or does it have a training program? So again, speaking to a counselor, a teacher, an educator, or just speaking out loud to someone can help you figure that out.
Awesome, thank you.
Anyone else?
I love the advice to talk to people, to start just having those conversations, and that can lead to other opportunities or ideas.
Absolutely.
I was just going to say the same thing. Yeah, I love that because we often think, and our students think that, there's just that one path to success after high school. And there's so many options out there and so many amazing career paths. And I just love the idea of apprenticeships. It's relevant. It's, because I know talking to a lot of my students, they're like, why do I have to take all of these other classes? Like Elizabeth was saying, you have that BA, but, it has nothing to do with your job. And so this is great recommendations for them. And we can just say, well, look at this. You can work and do what you want to do. And you're getting trained, in what you want to do. So I just think it's great. And we always appreciate your time and expertise.
Well, thank you so. I was just gonna echo what Eva Marie said. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your wealth of knowledge. We have a lot of students who this kind of just fits with where the ship is heading, so to speak. So thank you for taking your time. We're going to be sharing this out with our our families. We're super excited. Students, attendees, thank you for joining in. Chris, is it okay? And I feel like you kind of already mentioned this, but many of our students will have kind of those follow-up questions. Obviously, we'll filter them. Is it okay if I reach out and if any of them have any follow-up questions?
Anything for you, Mr. Q, and your students. Absolutely.
Awesome. And I do know that I know we have students who have moved to the Bay Area or we're focused in Central Valley. I know as far as Monterey, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but we do have students in Monterey.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you again. Audience, we have a lot more exciting speakers today. We have someone who works with the government, a lobbyist, coming up next. So feel free to check out the Career Fair webpage for links and times. And you can come too, Mr. Allen.
Yeah, I want to come now also. Thank you.
Well, that concludes our presentations. We'll see you guys on the next one.